Hello, everybody. Welcome to the College to Calling Summit. My name is Miko Lau, and the purpose of this show is to inspire, educate, and empower fellow college graduates out there on how you can build a happy, successful, abundant life centered around your passion. And today we have a super amazing guest here with us, Brian Benson. Brian is a multiple award-winning and number 1 best-selling self-improvement and children's author, actor, spoken word artist, filmmaker, coach, and TEDx speaker. And as a 4 times Ironman triathlete and cross-country bicyclist, Brian knows the value of hard work and never giving up on his dreams. It's a message that he shares with his audience through his creative expressions. And I'm invited Brian to come on this summit today because he just launched his brand new book, Habits for Success, Inspire Ideas to Help You Soar, which is an Amazon #1 bestseller. And I'm super excited to talk to Brian because I know he did something super courageous to follow his dream and his passion. And that's something I know a lot of our audience here today also have that inner desire to go out there and pursue the passion, but they might just not know how to start. So Brian, super excited to have you. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Miko. I'm really good. How are you?
Good, good, good. So
Awesome.
let's jump straight into this
Yeah.
interview. Why don't we take our audience back in time a little bit to talk about how was life like for you before you really started to make this decision to pursue your heart's calling?
Yeah. Well, prior to leaving my I was running my family's business until 10 years ago. I was running it for about 11 years, and I also kind of grew up working there too. And, it was fine. We had a golf center in Salem, Oregon, and it had a driving range and a retail store and a 9-hole par 3 course. And
Mhm.
it was fine. I was kind of maybe felt at the back of my mind that I was supposed to do something else. And so after about 11 years, I just felt kind of like I was burned out, and I felt like I wasn't growing there anymore. So I had a chat with my dad, and he was understanding, and he gave me his blessing to leave. I still would have otherwise still, but so I did not know what I was going to do. I just knew that I needed to try to figure it out. I kind of felt like I had this gift inside of me that wanted to come out,
Mhm.
although I didn't know what it was at the time, but I needed to try to release it. So it
Mhm.
ended up taking a year for me to actually leave because we decided to sell it. So we had to go through the process of listing it. And that was kind of a tough year because I was just ready to hit the road, but it turned out to be a blessing in disguise as I was feeling out of balance. And I've always kind of tried to be the best version of me that I can be. And so I sat down one day and wrote down 5 things that I knew that would keep me in balance during that period, wrote them on a piece of paper, and I stuck it in my wallet, and I'd look at it every day, and it helped.
Mhm.
And so much so that my intuition said, expand your list, and write a book. And I'd never written anything before, but I did that in a couple of months, and it just kind of poured through me. And that gave me kind of something to point a direction in, ever since.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow. So do you remember what were those 5 things that you wrote down on the paper?
Yeah, I think so. Let's see. One was some of them might seem really simple, but they do make a difference. One was make sure
Hmm.
that I was drinking enough water.
Hmm.
2 was make sure that I was getting enough sleep. Another one's making sure that I was getting some daily exercise,
Yeah.
because exercise and movement is important for me. And another one was to make sure that I was allowing myself to have some quiet time every day. Because
Mm-hmm.
as I've since learned, I mean, I kind of intuitively knew a little bit then, but I'm kind of an introvert, and I need a lot of time to refill my cup. And then the 5th one was to make sure that I was being creative every day. And at that point in my life, being creative was playing my guitar, whereas now it's a lot of things.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I love what you said about it being super basics, but sometimes like that's really what builds the foundation. So
Yeah.
they may seem like super no-brainer, but when you prep yourself mentally, physically in that way, you can really start to let inspirations come through. So I didn't
Mhm.
know that you quit your family business without knowing what it is that you wanted to do. That is super brave. So, but
Yeah.
you just had the feeling inside that something wanted to come out. Okay.
yeah, and I just trusted that it was time to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so once the book came out, I self-published it.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't sell a whole lot initially. I didn't know how to market a book 10 years ago, and I was also kind of shy and scared to speak in front of people about it. But it won a couple of awards, and I realized that if I wanted to share its message, I needed to overcome that fear. So
Mm-hmm.
then I just started the process of stepping out of my comfort zone in that realm.
Mm-hmm.
I took some community college speech classes. I did Toastmasters for about a year. I created an interactive workshop built around the book, and I thought I was being clever by making it interactive so I wouldn't have to speak the whole time. But it turned out to be a really good formula. It made the workshop different every time because I'd include people and what their ideas were, and it was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
I hired someone to co-host an internet radio show with me who'd had experience doing that. And I also took an acting class with no
Mm-hmm.
plans on acting. But so I just really, really stepped out of my comfort zone a lot to get more comfortable in front of people. And I kind of felt like maybe I was supposed to do it on a bigger scale
Mm-hmm.
at this time. So I just, you know,
So
went for it.
would you say that you somehow found your calling along the way of really discovering your interests, really taking on classes like you mentioned to
Yeah.
strengthen your weaknesses? So did you discover that through that journey?
To an extent, I think in
Okay.
some ways I kind of have certain expectations on how it would unfold, but
Mm-hmm.
as happens in life, sometimes those things change. So I thought it would just be through books, but after I took that acting class, um, I had a dream a few weeks after that, a story about a street guitarist, and when I woke up, it just felt really powerful, so I wrote it down. Then I met a young filmmaker and I said, "Hey, I've never acted before, or don't know how to make a short film, but I think I have a pretty good idea. Would you like to do it with me?" And he said, "Sure."
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
we made this little 8.5 minute film called Guitar Man, and it just opened up my world because it allowed me to be creative in a way that I'd never been before. And it really made me just feel alive and empowered. And I was a closet guitarist, but here I was doing it on a film. And
Mm-hmm.
the film had a lot of nice messages. And so I initially thought it was just going to be through books that I'd be hopefully like sharing inspirational and positive media. But then after this film came out, it just woke me up to like, wow, I can do this in a lot of different ways. And I just
Mm-hmm.
started to become excited and started creating videos and just really felt like my intention of helping people, um, the way to do it just got a lot larger and more interesting for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually stumbled upon Guitar Man when
Mm,
I was researching about you, and I love one of the biggest piece that I got from this project was that you really emphasize the idea that we all have something, our true gifts within us, and I feel like this can really speak to my audience because
mm,
as fellow recent college graduates, I see it in a lot of my friends and peers that they're constantly seeking from external success, right? Getting good grades, getting a good job at a good company. That's where they get their sense of success or
mhm.
fulfillment from without really diving within to see what their true gifts are. So, how can someone shift from that mentality to really diving inside of them to bring out what's in them to bring about success? How can someone shift that mentality?
Well, like the first step is just to be aware of the differences, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm,
And just
mm-hmm,
kind of self-awareness is always a good thing. The more self-aware that you can become, the better that you'll be able to catch yourself maybe when you're heading off in a direction that doesn't really truly bring you fulfillment and happiness,
mm-hmm,
right? And
mm-hmm,
so I think for me in my journey, I've been learning the entire process and all the entire way through. And but each step of the way, I was solidifying my foundation and I was learning more about myself. And it almost became kind of like the observer in my own self-growth process. And so that's really helped me. And the balance thing is very important too. The more that you can become self-aware on what keeps you in balance and what throws you out of balance will help you, um, along your journey and
mm-hmm.
enable you to be more proactive instead of reactive, which I think is really, really important. So Self-awareness is incredibly important. Patience and trusting the process is incredibly important.
Mhm.
And I think sometimes it's interesting, when we're younger, we just don't see things the way that we do after we've matured a bit and stuff. But there's so many different versions of success. And, I thought it was just about money and fame initially as well, but just for some people, just getting up and going into the gym, that's a success. I mean, there's so many different ways that we can be successful and are successful. And if we can really remember that
Mhm.
and not get stuck on it just being one way, because that's going to be tough. Because when you do struggle and you maybe aren't reaching those particular goals, it's going to be a rough road.
Yeah, I
And
absolutely agree with the power of self-awareness. That's really the key, the foundation to bringing out that true gifts from inside. So what are some tangible physical steps that you personally taken to really cultivate that self-awareness? What can we do to cultivate that?
sure, well, exercise and movement's been really good for me. I think it's a form of meditation. I mean, there's
Mhm.
actually a lot of ways. Meditation's been really important for me too, because it's slowed me down. It's enabled my intuition to become stronger. And, things like exercise, all those years when I was racing in triathlons and training on those long rides and runs, although I didn't really realize it at the time, they were forms of meditation as well. Anytime
Mhm.
we can quiet ourselves and just kind of turn off the noise for a bit, it's a bonus.
Mhm.
Because there's so much noise out there, with our devices and social media and the news, you name it, and it's not real, and it in some ways it's kind of maybe beneficial in connecting us with others and helping things, but yet we really need to pay attention on how much we do it, because we can get lost in all of that
Mhm.
and really kind of forget what is real.
Mhm.
So movement, exercise, meditation, healthy eating. I know that sounds crazy, but it makes such a big difference on how you feel.
Mhm.
And so that's been very important for me. Gosh, we're all here to learn and grow, but I think one of the toughest things for us to do is to learn how to love and accept ourselves. And
Mhm.
so I know I've had to work on that very hard, but the more that I am able to do that, all the other stuff just kind of seems to go away and doesn't really matter. I mean, once you really get to that place of loving yourself, I think everything else falls into place. So
Mhm.
whatever you can do to take care of yourself is a plus.
Yeah, I love it. It's like the way that I look at this as an analogy. It's like a plant and the soil. It's all about the
Yes.
environment. Yeah, so that when we can feel good, physically, mentally, that's when we have the mental space to go out there and create the
And the
amazing things.
confidence. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It all
absolutely.
builds confidence in ourselves too.
So I know that it's really important for it's all about the routines and the daily habits when it comes to all the things that you mentioned, working out, meditation. So do you have like a morning routine that you stick to every day that sets you up for the rest of your day?
Yeah. Yeah. Every day I usually go to the gym in the morning
Mm-hmm.
and just that kind of gets me going. Then I'll probably spend about 15 minutes after that just kind of sitting on my couch, just in a quiet moment, just to
Mm-hmm.
kind of just get myself set and centered. And then sometimes in the afternoon, if I'm feeling a little tired, I'll go meditate for maybe a half hour or something.
Mm-hmm.
And that helps kind of re-energize me.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's go back to when you first made the decision to leave something that was so stable and secure, your family business, to something that's super unknown, right? It must have been super scary. So how did you overcome really stepping into something that you just had no idea what was going to happen? How did you overcome the fears?
I almost just felt like it was a little scary for sure, but
Mm-hmm.
I knew that I needed to do it, and I
Mm-hmm.
would be unhappy if I stayed, and I didn't want to be unhappy anymore. Luckily, there's this little part of me that always wants to kind of keep learning and growing,
Mm-hmm.
and so it was strong enough inside of me that I needed to make that effort. And you know, the more you do it, the easier it gets.
Mm-hmm.
Trusting in our intuition and I guess I've always luckily been kind of trusting, and you know, way sooner than I thought. I mean, that book kind of magically happened, and that just kind of pointed me in the direction before I even really left. And so it's always been kind of like that for me. Anymore, I just kind of happily expect the unexpected, and
Yeah.
just yeah, what I do doesn't necessarily make sense to most people. Like if getting an intuitive hit or an idea and just like, I'm going to do this, whether it's a short
Uh-huh.
film or you name it, but they've all played an important part in my own self-growth process, as well as kind of connecting the dots to further me along my journey.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it sounds like, have you ever had people in your life who told you like, Brian, what are you doing? Did you have like naysayers in your life? And how did you overcome those naysayers?
I don't know if I've necessarily really had naysayers saying, you're a
Uh-huh.
fool, what are you doing? But I know that my mom probably sometimes wonders, you know, like, where's the money
Mm-hmm.
going to come from and that kind of
Yeah.
thing. You know, there's a little bit of that. I mean, that's what moms are for, right? But it's always worked out, you know, one thing's led to another, and I've always kind of been taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so, you know, it's tough when you have those people in your ear, you know, whether it's a friend just trying to be helpful. However, really what all that's coming through from them is their own fears.
Mm-hmm.
And so you need to really kind of be aware of that when you are making intuitive decisions and those, you know, decisions for yourself. And
Yeah.
sometimes people will say something, not necessarily, you know, subconsciously, but they see you growing and expanding, and they're afraid to do it themselves, and they'll kind of inadvertently try to hold you back by like saying something, or you know what I mean, afraid they're going to
Mm-hmm.
lose you because
Mm-hmm.
you're growing and they're not, or that you're willing to
Mm-hmm.
try and grow and you're not.
Yeah.
um
Yeah. And Brian, I can see that you're someone who really follows your intuition and really trusts that
yeah.
invisible voice. So how does it actually show up in our lives? Like, how do we know that we're guided by intuition, not just by some nonsense going on in our head?
That's a really tough question, because I think it can hit different people in different ways. For me, it was just
Mm-hmm.
a knowing. It's just like all
Mm-hmm.
systems go. I have to move toward that, in that direction.
Right.
Sometimes, mm, you know, I think I'm going to get back to that self-awareness thing again. The more that you can
Mm-hmm.
kind of slow down a little bit and
Mm-hmm.
incorporate positive habits into your life, the stronger it will come through, and the more that you'll be able to trust it. Otherwise, it's very faint, and you might not be able to recognize it, or
Mm-hmm.
won't, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like a relationship too. We gotta cultivate that
Yes,
relationship
that's
with
a
our inner being.
great way to put it. Yes, good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a
Yeah.
relationship. It really
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. It's like the more you pay attention to it and the more you act upon your intuition, the more it will give you those inspirations. So it takes time.
Yep.
So what would you say are the most difficult parts of this journey of following your heart? What was like the biggest challenge along the way?
I mean, I've had quite a few. I think one is just
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the expectations a little bit. When I was 3, I told my mom I was put here to inspire people. And
Oh.
she kind of reminded me after I'd wrote my first book. It's like, whoa. And so in some ways, I feel like I know where things are going. And every time I might release a book or a project,
Mm-hmm.
in the back of my mind, I'm going to be going, is that the thing that's going to spring me up? You know what I mean? And if it didn't
Yeah.
quite do it in the way that I thought it should, it made me depressed for a while, instead
Mm-hmm.
of just really enjoying the creative process and trusting that it'll do what it's supposed to do for me. And so those were some hard lessons along the way. But
Yeah, I
anyway,
actually want to ask you further about that because I also go through that same journey. Sometimes I have my head super deep in the grind, and sometimes I lose sight of the bigger purpose of what I'm creating here.
yeah.
So, how can sometimes I just lose motivation too. So, like, how can I stay motivated always?
Mm. Well, take breaks when you need them. There was a time where I didn't really do that, and I would try to push through. And
Mm-hmm.
every time I tried to push through, nothing, I wouldn't be able to do anything creatively. So it's just like I was not doing anything for a while. So I might as well just have gone and taken a trip for a couple days, or you know
Right.
what I mean? Or just give myself a total break. And I wasn't initially,
Mm-hmm.
because there was that part of me that feared not moving ahead. And so anymore, I just, if I feel like I need a break, I take one. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of in a little bit of a one right now. Last week, I was really feeling like I needed to get out of LA, and I decided the night before, and I hopped in my car last Monday, drove up to 3 different national parks. I went to Sequoia National Park, Kings Canyon
Mm-hmm.
National Park, and then Yosemite 3 days in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And that was nice. And it kind of began the process of turning my brain off and just relaxing and refilling. And I'm still kind of, even though I'm still working a little bit now,
Mm-hmm.
I've given myself permission to just
Mm-hmm.
relax and just ease into things for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
whenever
love it.
yeah, thank you. And whenever I do that, it's scary at first, but I've found I come back so much stronger and more creative, and stuff just pours through me then. And so it's really important to take breaks when you need them.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It might seem counterintuitive at first,
Totally.
but it's actually the most productive thing we can do to just take breaks. And I love to connect in nature too. It's like the natural recharge that all of us can
For
use.
sure. No,
Yeah.
it's unexplainable. It's like the vibration is perfection. And so whenever I go there,
Mm,
it just puts my mind at ease, and it
yeah.
just sparks my creativity.
Yeah. And especially in LA, I know how crazy it is down there.
Yeah, I try to hike every day too.
Uh-huh.
At the end of the day, about 5 o'clock, there's a place called Fryman Canyon in Studio City that I
Um,
really like. And so it's a 3 mile loop, and
mhm,
it does the trick.
mhm. That's awesome. So now so the opposite of that question. So what is the most rewarding thing from this journey of making this decision to follow your heart?
Gosh, I think there's a lot. I mean, one, I'm proud of myself for stepping out of my comfort zone so much.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm proud of the fact that, a lot of what I've put out there has helped other people in a variety of ways.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, those are probably the main things. I try not to put too much pressure on myself anymore, and just let
Mm-hmm.
be as they may, and just happily expect the unexpected. And just ideally, I really want to just help other people realize that they're enough
Mm-hmm.
with who they are and what they have to work with. And once somebody can get into that place, then like I mentioned earlier, it really gets a lot easier. We
Mm-hmm.
stop trying to fill those voids outside of ourselves,
Yeah.
and those
Yeah.
don't usually work, or they're
Mm-hmm.
only temporary.
And what's like your typical day like now for you?
Well, yesterday, for example, I have a podcast myself that I just started. So I
Oh.
preparing for a guest I have today, a little bit
Mm-hmm.
yesterday. I also
Mm-hmm.
worked on edited a piece that I'm working on, and I also did some filming. I've been doing a lot of Jay Shetty videos
Oh.
as an actor, and so I did a couple on Monday night, and then I did another one last night. And so, I just every day is a little bit different depending on, if I have an audition to go to, or an acting gig, or
Mm-hmm.
marketing my book, or working on some videos that I'm putting out, or you name it. It's all a little bit different, but they're all kind of under the same umbrella.
It sounds like the best life because you're doing what you love every day and you have that time freedom to really do that. A lot of us out there don't have that blessing. So,
Yeah.
really, so let's talk about that. So, I
Yeah.
know a lot of people do want to have this life where they can truly do what they love every day, but they might find themselves stuck in a position that they don't really see there's a way out. So, what would you say the number one first step they need to do today while they're still maybe working a full-time job, still in the position where they're not happy yet? So what's one thing they can do right now after listening to this interview?
It's going to sound crazy, but start taking care of yourself, because
Mm-hmm.
the stronger you are in mind and body, then you'll start really getting the creativity flowing through you. And that is where you will find the things that you want to move toward, to maybe create as a side piece, eventually hoping to make it into the major piece, if that makes
Got it.
sense.
Yes, that makes sense. That
You
is
know,
so true. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
but I mean, if somebody already kind of has an idea of what they want to do,
Mm-hmm.
really understand your why, your reason. Sometimes it might not be the right reason, and you might run into some problems because of that. But just
Mm-hmm.
really, the more that you can understand your whys and the hows, it'll make things a little easier, and maybe you can map it out a little bit clearer.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Yeah, I feel like when a lot of times when people are stuck in that daily grind, day in and day out, they are really operating under surviving mode that they don't have the room to even think something else. So self-care is important. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would love to hear more about your Ironman triathlons.
Oh
Sounds
yeah.
like that's something that requires so much mental discipline and willpower to really make it happen. So,
Yeah.
how did you start doing triathlons and how's that journey like for you?
Well, it's been very interesting. Like I said earlier to you, I think I've lived many different lifetimes, but when I was in
Mm-hmm.
college, I had a knee injury. My kneecap got knocked out of place playing mud
Mm-hmm.
football,
Oh, yeah.
and I had to go through a surgery, and it took about a year to get it healthy. But I had a couple buddies who had done a short triathlon the summer before, and it sounded interesting to me. And triathlon was still fairly new then. And I
Mm-hmm.
just set a goal for myself to get my knee healthy and get my body healthy and to do one. And so that gave me some inspiration while rehabbing.
Yeah.
And I did a short race that next summer, a year later, and I felt so empowered and alive. And I ended up doing 4 more that year. And then I did 10 the next year. And then
Wow.
the third year I did my first Ironman, and then I did another Ironman the fourth year. And it
Mm-hmm.
just I think looking back, this was one of the first times that I really kind of had this intuitive hit about moving towards something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when I set the goal to do that short race, before I'd even really started training for it, I wrote my first poem, and it's really horrible, but it's called "The Triathlete," and it talks about someone finishing an Ironman race. So it's like I was being led down that
Mm-hmm.
path to do that, and through the years of racing and stuff. It gave me a nice hit of confidence about
Mm-hmm.
myself and my body, and I think it was nice, really great having those experiences in my back pocket when I left
Mm-hmm.
my family business, realizing that I could pretty much do anything I put my mind to because I'd already experienced that.
Right.
And I rode my bike across the United States in 1996 too. So I also had that in my back pocket. Um,
Wow, you rode a bike across
yeah,
the US?
yeah.
How long did that take you?
To 9 weeks, almost 2.5 months. Yeah,
Wow.
from Seattle to DC, and I did it as a fundraiser, and
Mm-hmm.
it was great. We took a northern route, and
Mm-hmm.
we had all kinds of experiences and staying in little tiny towns, and we
Yeah.
went through big towns like Minneapolis, Chicago, and Pittsburgh, and
Mm-hmm.
we stayed at a Native American reservation in Montana, and we stayed at an abbey with monks in North Dakota, and we stayed at an
Mm-hmm.
Amish community in Pennsylvania. So we had all these different experiences of America.
Oh, that is so fun.
Yeah, it was really probably one of the greatest times of my life. It's like I was in the
Mm-hmm.
present moment for the entire time
Mm-hmm.
because I was seeing everything with new eyes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Being in the present moment, is that something that you also really be mindful of too on this journey of yours? Because I know how important that is.
Yeah, it's definitely been one of my lessons as well. And the
Mm-hmm.
further along I go, the easier it is to stay relaxed and just trust that I'll be fine moving forward. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
initially, like when I was pushing and I wasn't really trusting enough, and wasn't it wasn't that I was ever looking in the past, which a lot of people do. I was looking in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And so that can kind of mess you up too a little bit. And so anymore I'm just trying to just really have fun and enjoy the journey.
Yeah, yeah. So, on this journey, would you say like you had mentors in your life to really help guide you, or books, or what are some things that really help supported you along the way?
Great question. A little bit of everything. I think
Mm-hmm.
there's that inner drive inside of me that's always been there, and that's kind of had me doing things on my own in my own way. And there's a
Yeah.
little bit of a stubbornness there. But
Mm-hmm.
I've definitely read some books along the way. I remember starting to read some self-help books probably 20, 25 years ago. I think Gary Zukov wrote Seed of the Soul, and I enjoyed
Mm-hmm.
that. And listened to some of Wayne Dyer's books a little bit before I left the family business. And so,
Mm-hmm.
there was a man, after I left the family business, I moved to Reno to be near my son, who lived about 30 miles away in Northern California, and
Mm-hmm.
started to reinvent myself there. But my first, one of the teachers at the community college speech classes was a really motivating, great guy named Joe
Mm-hmm.
Giampapa, and he had written some self-help books himself. And he really made me feel welcome, and gave me a really nice, just, you know, a belief.
Yeah.
He believed in me, and that helped me believe in myself. And so yeah, I've definitely along the way, I think, we intersect with people, or pick up a book or something, here or there, that just is
Mm-hmm.
exactly what we need to hear at the exact right moment to get us to
Yeah.
the next spot.
Yeah, I think that's a quote that says the teacher will show up when the student is ready.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
So I know that the Brian that we know today is obviously not the same Brian that was still working at the family business. You really have to do the inner transformation that really took place over time. And along this process, then you must have had to disassociate yourself from certain things, certain people. So do you want to talk about that importance of community? Like, who do you surround yourself with?
Mm.
Did you find yourself having to do that disassociation?
No, it's an interesting question. I think luckily I've been just connected with pretty good people along the way.
Mm-hmm.
However, when we personally grow ourselves, not everybody's going to kind of maybe go at the same pace.
Mm-hmm.
So, and not that I can necessarily think of anybody right in my mind now, but there's some people that I probably don't communicate with anymore, and it isn't because I'm mad at them or anything else. It's just we're in different places in our lives,
Yeah.
and as far as community goes, yeah, it's definitely important. That's a little tough for me sometimes because I'm an introvert. I'm an outgoing person, but I'm really an introvert. And I probably spend 80% of my time in quiet. And I need to do a little bit better. I know it would be good for me. And so I'm making a
Mm-hmm.
conscious effort to do more socially.
Mm-hmm.
But there again, it's really good to surround yourself with people who are like-minded and who are wanting to grow as well and move in the same, not necessarily the same direction, but just forward movement. And so
Mm-hmm.
anytime you can surround yourself with someone who's positive and who has had some experiences that they can share and teach you, or just, a positive vibration is really magical. I need to be around. And so anytime you can just be around good people, you'll never go
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah, so I mean, I really, really love what you said so far, everything that you mentioned in this interview, because I resonate with a lot of what you say. Like, I'm also an introvert, but I think it's also a blessing in a way because that really gives us time, a long time to spend with ourselves, to really dive within, to ask ourselves questions and really get to know who we are. I think that's something all of us can use more of sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of people aren't necessarily in tune with who they really are, and there's kind of
Mhm.
sleepwalking a little bit, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
All right. So to wrap up this interview, Brian, this is the last question that I want to ask you. So imagine that you're back in your 20s. What were some things that you just wish someone would have told you, or what would you tell your 20-year-old self,
mm,
knowing what you know now?
that's interesting. I'll try to make this short because, like, when I was younger, I was a
Mm-hmm.
little more outgoing, with just a little more happy-go-lucky, and after my first couple books came out 10 years ago, I started putting pressure on myself to be almost perfect and pious because here I was writing self-help, and so the last couple of years, I've been working myself, getting back to who I was in my 20s a little bit more, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just being me. However, I have a lot more wisdom now, and so I mean, what would I tell myself? Just relax and have fun, and just don't get too worked up about anything. Because
Mm-hmm.
some ways it almost feels like things are already laid out for us. It's hard to explain, but free will. We have free will, but I think our roads, our paths will be smoother if we utilize the information that's coming through us. And I think it'll be a little rockier if we're not. And so I'm not religious. I guess I consider myself spiritual, but God, the
Mm-hmm.
universe, spirit, whatever you want to call it. I think our intuition is kind of a game plan, and it's, I think, really, if we listen to it and honor it, it really will bring us our own version of happiness and success.
Oh, I love that you said intuition is a game plan. I never thought of it that way. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
so self-care, having fun, really being mindful of the present moment are all the key things that I've gotten so far from this interview. That's how we cultivate that nourishing place for our intuition to come through. So Brian, I know that you're super passionate about inspiring and empowering people to go out there and build a life that they love. So I know that you have a free gift prepared to give our audience today. Would you
Yes.
mind letting us know what it is and how our audience can find it?
Yeah, if you just go to my website, which is gbrianbenson.com, there's a lot of fun stuff on the website, some of those short films I talked about, and you name it. But if you just sign up for the newsletter list, and I only send it out about once a month, you get a PDF that says 7 reasons why people don't accomplish their dreams and how to overcome them. And I really am proud of that PDF. There's a lot of wisdom there, I think, that I've learned through the years, and I think that will help other people be aware
Awesome.
of things to look out for.
Great, great. So make sure to go check out Brian's website. And is there any other platforms that our audience can find you online?
Yeah, on social media, most things are at G. Brian Benson. I think the Facebook one's G. Brian Benson Media.
Okay.
And then the Habits book is at habitsforsuccessbook.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brian.
Yeah,
It has been a pleasure to
thank
have
you.
you on this call. And everyone, thank you for tuning in today. And make sure to come back to listen to our next interview where we'll be going over even more exciting topics such as financial freedom and inner transformation. So thank you, everyone. I'll see you next time.
Thank you, Miko.
Bye.